in sort of the rough shape of this flower. This one is going to come up. This flower is so close to me that as I'm looking at it, I'm closing one eye to get in, to help me kind of see the shape of the flower. So now, see, I'm just blocking in some of the major ones and where they are. And most of the rest of these are going to be down here. All right. So what I've got, I don't know if you can see this very well, is I've blocked in the overall shape of this flower. How many people have been to some of the wildflower sketching workshops that I've done? All right. So do you remember how when I was drawing we talked about drawing cone-shaped flowers? All right. What I'm doing is I'm thinking of this whole inflorescence as one big cone. Here's the circle on the top of it. It all goes down to one point. If you look really closely, that's the initial sketch that I made. I have sort of a circle in here showing me the top edge of that cone of flowers, and then these come down here. Now I'm going to draw the individual flowers in that. So I'm taking that little technique that I used before on drawing a single flower, and I'm applying it to drawing this whole cluster of flowers. Yes? Oh, Matali's pointed out to me that these flowers themselves are also cones. So first I've got the whole cluster is cones. The individual flowers are cones in it as well. That's absolutely right. So I'm going to use that cone drawing technique a couple of times. So I'm going to draw. Here what I'm doing is I'm doing what I call finger arcs. See how I've got those two lines close together? All right. How do I do that? How do I get those nice straight lines? What I did is I just put my hand down on my piece of paper and made an arc with by rotating my wrist like this, then just moved my pencil a little bit, didn't move my hand at all, and did that same motion again. And I get two little curved parallel lines. If I'd drawn this and then moved my hand and then tried to draw it again, it'd be hard to get those two lines parallel. You'll see I'm going to do the same thing with the stem in a moment. I'll show you this trick for getting long, straight stems. All right, so there's part number one. I'm going to notice that it comes narrow. It is then going to widen and out to there. There it is. All right, so I'm doing this one first because it's right up in front of everybody. Now this one's going to come up. And there's my flower number two. This one is starting to open. Now I'm going to start just kind of working my way back here in space. I'm going to do some of these smaller ones, these smaller buds back here. So I'm doing these little finger arcs in here. Here is a bunch of these smaller ones down here. Now, if I draw this entire drawing with the same sort of pressure, it is going to really flatten out. So as these ones that I want to be a little bit further back, these I'm not going to press as hard with. You press more lightly, and that part of your drawing is going to recede into the distance. Now, Matali pointed out to me that these ones that are really open are also cone-shaped. So here, I'm going to draw one of these flowers, and I'm going to draw a little ellipse around the tips of these petals with my non-photo blue pencil, and then my cone comes down underneath that. So that little cone-shaped flower up there has a circle around the tips of its petals, and then that's going to come down to a cone. I draw the petals that are closest to me first. Three, 4, 5, and 6. That So let's, actually if we don't hold it, then it is even less wobbly. On a really windy day, it really helps to hold them. So it comes down, there we go. On the part of the flower that I want to be closer to me, I'm going to draw that a little bit stronger. I've got flower number 1. I'm going to have another one coming up here. This one is going to retreat further into the distance, so I'm going to draw it more lightly. More small light ones up here. I'm now going to draw this one here. This is another open one, so I have an ellipse around the circle of the top here. And I have petal number 1, I have petal number 2, I have petal number 3. I want to make sure I get 6 in. 3, 4, 5. Drawing from a real flower is much easier than making one up out of your head, because you can really look at what are the locations of where those petals come in, and you don't have to make it up. And then I have one more to do. It's this one that's furthest in the back. I have 3 pale sepals here, and now I'm going to draw the stem in, and I'm going to show this is kind of a fun trick. It's hard to draw, you know, little line, little line, little line, little line, draw the other side, and get these 2 sides of your plant stem to be nice and parallel to each other. So here's the trick. What I'm going to do is I want a long line coming down like this. So instead of making a little motion with my fingers like this, or with my hand like this, I'm going to be locking my elbow in one place and rotating from here. Right. That's going to allow me to draw a long straight line, and I'm going to turn my book so that that line, right? Now I bring my hand back here, my elbow's in exactly the same place. Worth the price of admission, right? So that gives me parallel long straight lines, or curved lines, because if I'm curving with my elbow. All right, so that's the elbow rotation that allows me to get to those lines. So that is using I first sort of blocked in the general shape of the whole flower. I then I drew the ones that were closest to me first. I worked my way back in space. I used that kind of arm rotation trick down there at the bottom, and I have a drawing of Ithuriel's spear. And instead of writing normally here, I forget how to spell Ithuriel. Ithuriel?
U-R-I-E-L.
How do I spell it again?
I-T-H-U-R-I-E-L.
U-R-I-E-L. How do you pronounce it?
I say ethereal.
Ethereal. Ethereal.
Yeah, so am I deficient. I say.
And I kind of like writing it along the side of the stem. You can be kind of creative with where you write your little names in. And there is a line drawing. If I want to, I can add watercolor to it, or just leave it as a graphite line drawing. The paint is really wet and fresh in here. It'll be making sort of brighter purple marks. As I use this paint up in this brush, it is going to, the tip of it is going to stay damp, but I'm going to give it a little bit of a wipe so it's less purpley. Or is it changing more blue? No, yep. So I've got a little bit less purple in it now. and coming down on these, coming down on these, coming down. I'm going to get a little bit of blue on here, test it off on the side. Yep, I like that. Boom, boom. And then I'm going to mix up some kind of pale green. That's a nice little pale green right there. Now now I'm using the, careful with the tip of it, fill these in, and very quickly I can get this thing filled in. A trick for watercolor in the field here is there are techniques. Now notice I'm coming back to the same kind of angle here so I can with one stroke. Get that guy. A trick that I use for doing watercolor in the field is I avoid real wet and wet techniques where I have a lot of water on my brush. I like to do this with what's called more of a dry brush approach. In bright sun like this is going to dry really fast. So I tilt the pages like this and I go, ah yes, my page is dry. And now I can come along and put in just a few little details here. I'm going to get a little bit more of that purple, a little bit stronger, test, good. And there are these lines down the middle of the petals. And the line, does it turn green? Yeah, it does. Oh, that's interesting. Test color over here. Line, pick it up turning green. The hardest thing I think with watercolor is knowing when to stop. And usually what we do is we keep going until we overwork something and just kill it. So my general rule is to stop before you're done. Before you think, you're not going to get to this point where your brain says, yes, this drawing is done. Stop before you're done. There's no point where your brain says, yes, it's done. That's when it's probably overworked. So stop before you're done. Just kind of go, I think I'm going to go find another wildflower and explore it through my sketchbook. And that is how I might do a little drawing of Ithuriel spear.